Welcome back, friends. Let me ask you to picture something simple but powerful: a chameleon. At first glance, it looks calm, almost ordinary. But then, with the slightest shift, its colors change. Sometimes it blends into the background so perfectly you hardly notice it's there. Other times it flashes bright, drawing all attention to itself. The chameleon doesn't change colors for beauty alone. It does it for survival, for control, to stay safe in an environment that might otherwise expose it. Narcissists operate in much the same way. Around one group of people, they'll wear the colors of charm and generosity, winning admiration with ease. Around another group, they'll whisper accusations, twist perceptions, and quietly stain your reputation. Like the chameleon, they change depending on who's watching. But here's the painful part: when they shift their colors, it's often you who gets sacrificed so they can remain admired, untouchable, and in control. Carl Jung, the depth psychologist, taught us that much of human behavior is driven by the shadow, the hidden side of ourselves we refuse to face. Narcissists live in constant battle with that shadow. Instead of acknowledging their flaws, they project them outward, painting you with the very traits they can't admit belong to them. And once they've chosen their colors, they skillfully recruit others to see you through that distorted palette. The result: confusion, mistrust, and isolation. People you thought were allies begin to doubt you. Relationships you valued suddenly feel strained, and all the while, the narcissist stands there in their perfect camouflage, convincing everyone that they're the innocent one and you're the problem. Just like the chameleon hiding in plain sight, their manipulation is so subtle that by the time you realize what's happening, the damage has already spread. But here's what I want you to hold on to: the chameleon's colors are an illusion. Beneath all those shifts and shades, it's still the same fragile creature. Narcissists may turn people against you, but their tactics say more about their inner emptiness than about your worth. Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. By understanding these patterns, you're no longer at the mercy of the narcissist's camouflage. You can see clearly, reclaim your reality, and step out of the shadow they try to cast over you. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a chameleon in your own life? Someone who shifts their colors depending on who's around, often at your expense? How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your perspective could be the light someone else needs right now. If this resonates with you, be sure to like this video, subscribe for more insights on psychology and relationships, and join our growing community. Remember, you're not defined by the colors someone else paints you with, you're defined by your own truth. Number 1. The narcissist's mask, the persona weaponized. Carl Jung described the persona as the mask an individual wears to interact with the world, a social facade that hides the true self. For most people, the persona is a useful adaptation, a way of presenting oneself politely or professionally without exposing every inner thought. But in the hands of a narcissist, the persona becomes a weapon. They polish it until it shines so brightly that others can't see what lies behind it. To outsiders, the narcissist seems charming, accomplished, or even altruistic. They appear to be the friend everyone wants, the co-worker everyone respects, or the partner who seems too good to be true. And yet, this perfection is an illusion. The mask exists not just to protect the narcissist's fragile ego, but also to blind others to their manipulation. This mask makes the narcissist a master of first impressions. People are drawn to them, often describing them as magnetic or charismatic. They seem to mirror exactly what the other person wants to see. If you crave kindness, they embody generosity. If you admire intelligence, they play the intellectual. If you value humility, they adopt a falsely modest posture. Jung warned that the persona, when inflated, becomes dangerous because people mistake the mask for the true personality. And in the narcissist's case, this mistake is deliberate. They understand that perception is power. If they can control how others see them, they can also control how others see you. This is why, when conflict eventually arises, the narcissist's mask becomes your greatest enemy. By the time they reveal their darker side to you in private, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the cruelty, they have already secured allies outside the relationship. To friends, family, or co-workers, they remain the same charming figure. And when you try to expose the truth, you sound bitter, jealous, or unstable. People wonder, how could such a wonderful person be guilty of what you're saying? In that moment, you realize the mask wasn't just meant to deceive strangers, it was designed to isolate you. The persona works because people want to believe it. Jung observed that society prefers masks. We don't want to deal with the complexity of raw human nature. The narcissist thrives on this cultural weakness. They know most people will accept appearances rather than dig deeper, and so they live behind their mask while you are forced to deal with the contradictions between the public image and the private reality. This contrast becomes unbearable. You begin to doubt yourself. Maybe you are overreacting. Maybe you are misjudging. Maybe the problem really is you. That's the true genius of the narcissist's persona. It doesn't just deceive others, it destabilizes you. To understand the power of the narcissist's mask is to see how fragile our trust in appearances really is. Jung would remind us that the persona is always incomplete, always partial, and dangerous when mistaken for the whole. Yet most people cling to it because the mask is comforting. The narcissist exploits this universal vulnerability. They weaponize their persona, turning it into both a shield that protects them and a sword that cuts you down. And until you can separate the illusion from the reality, you remain trapped in their theater, cast as the villain in a story where they play the hero. Number 2, projection and scapegoating, the shadow cast on you. Carl Jung believed that each person carries a shadow, the parts of the psyche we reject, deny, or hide from ourselves. For healthy individuals, shadow work means recognizing these darker elements and integrating them consciously. But for the narcissist, the shadow is intolerable. They cannot admit weakness, selfishness, or cruelty because their entire identity depends on appearing superior. And so, instead of facing their own shadow, they project it outward. They take what they fear or despise in themselves and pin it on you. Suddenly, you are the selfish one, the liar, the manipulator, the untrustworthy figure. In truth, they are describing themselves, but to everyone else, it appears that you are the problem. This act of projection is the foundation of scapegoating. A narcissist doesn't simply want to avoid their shadow. They want someone else to carry it for them. By accusing you of their own flaws, they create a psychological diversion. People who might otherwise notice the narcissist's behavior are redirected to you, the scapegoat. And because the narcissist often speaks with conviction, charm, or authority, their accusations are believed. You become the vessel for everything ugly they cannot bear to face in themselves. This is why victims often feel not only attacked, but also contaminated, as though they are carrying someone else's darkness. Smear campaigns emerge from this projection. Behind closed doors, the narcissist whispers subtle criticisms or spreads rumors about you. They rarely make dramatic accusations at first. Instead, they plant seeds of doubt. I worry about them sometimes. They seem unstable. Or I don't want to say anything, but I've noticed they can be a little selfish. These carefully chosen words are designed to paint you in a negative light while preserving the narcissist's image as concerned, reasonable, even compassionate. Over time, these whispers grow into a narrative, and before long, people begin to question your character. Jung observed that the unconscious is highly suggestible, and once an idea is planted, it can take root and spread like wildfire. The cruel irony is that projection feels convincing to those who witness it. When the narcissist points to you and says, "They're the manipulator," people unconsciously recognize the narcissist's own shadow. But because it's too threatening to associate it with the charming figure before them, they assign it to you instead. This is what Jung meant when he said, "The things we dislike in others are often the things we dislike in ourselves." The narcissist's accusations resonate with others because they trigger this same unconscious process. You become the mirror in which everyone else's shadow is reflected, and suddenly you stand alone as the designated problem. To be scapegoated is to carry not just one person's shadow, but often the collective projections of an entire group. Jung would say that this is why the scapegoat feels archetypally cursed, burdened with a role that seems larger than life. You aren't just misunderstood, you are symbolically condemned. The narcissist ensures that your identity is rewritten in the minds of others. You are no longer seen for who you truly are, but as the embodiment of everything the narcissist refuses to own. And until you recognize this as projection, until you stop carrying the shadows that don't belong to you, you remain trapped in a role designed to destroy you. Number 3. Triangulation, turning allies into weapons. One of the narcissist's most insidious tactics is triangulation, the deliberate act of pulling a third person into the dynamic to gain power over you. At its core, triangulation is about control. Instead of dealing with you directly, the narcissist introduces another person, a friend, a family member, a colleague, or even a stranger, and manipulates the relationship so that you feel excluded, compared, or attacked. Carl Jung might describe this as the work of the trickster archetype, a figure who thrives on confusion, deception, and division. The narcissist uses triangulation to create tension and insecurity, forcing you into a defensive position while they sit back and watch the conflict unfold. Triangulation takes many forms. In romantic relationships, it might look like the narcissist constantly mentioning an ex-partner, subtly implying that you fall short in comparison. In family systems, it can mean turning siblings against one another, or a parent pitting one child against another to secure loyalty. In workplaces, triangulation often appears as gossip. The narcissist tells you one thing, then tells someone else a different version of the story, making sure you eventually hear about it. In every case, the goal is the same: to destabilize you by making you feel unsupported or inferior. Jung noted that the unconscious mind reacts strongly to comparisons, and the narcissist exploits this vulnerability with surgical precision. The damage of triangulation lies not only in the comparison, but also in the erosion of trust. When someone you care about begins to see you through the narcissist's distorted lens, the bond between you weakens. The narcissist positions themselves as the central figure, the one who controls the flow of information, the one who decides who is good and who is bad. They essentially rewrite the social order, placing themselves at the top and forcing everyone else into competition for their approval. Jung understood that groups are vulnerable to this type of manipulation because of what he called the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of instincts and archetypes that guide human behavior. The narcissist plugs into this collective energy, using it to make division feel natural, inevitable, even justified. For the victim, triangulation feels like betrayal multiplied. Not only are you dealing with the narcissist's hostility, but now people you trusted become instruments in their game. Friends stop returning calls. Family members begin to treat you with suspicion. Co-workers whisper behind your back. And worst of all, the narcissist presents themselves as the innocent mediator, the one caught in the middle, when in reality, they are orchestrating the entire drama. This is what makes triangulation so devastating. You are punished not just by the narcissist, but also by the very people you once counted on for support. Jung would argue that the archetypal nature of the trickster explains why triangulation is so effective. The trickster thrives in chaos, creating division so that people lose their sense of orientation. By weaponizing others against you, the narcissist ensures that you are left isolated, doubting yourself, and desperate for reconciliation. The true genius of this tactic is that the narcissist never appears to be the aggressor. They appear to be the one keeping the peace. But once you understand the triangulation as a conscious strategy, you can see through the illusion. You realize that the allies turned against you were never enemies by choice. They were manipulated into playing a role, and that recognition is the first step toward breaking free from the narcissist's carefully spun web. Number 4. The collective spell, mass influence, and groupthink. Carl Jung warned about the dangers of mass psychology, the way individuals lose their capacity for critical thinking when absorbed into a group. In his view, the collective unconscious exerts a powerful influence, drawing people into shared patterns of thought and behavior that often bypass rational awareness. Narcissists instinctively understand this. They know that if they can capture the imagination of a group, they don't have to prove their case logically or truthfully. Instead, they cast a spell of influence, one that spreads like fire through gossip, suggestion, and emotional contagion. Once the crowd is under their sway, the truth becomes irrelevant. The narcissist controls the narrative, and anyone who resists risks being cast out of the group. This dynamic explains why so many victims of narcissistic abuse describe the experience as surreal, even dreamlike. They watch people they once trusted suddenly shift allegiances, not because of evidence or direct experience, but because of the collective mood the narcissist has created. A single rumor, repeated often enough, becomes accepted fact. A small seed of doubt grows into unquestioned certainty. Jung understood that groups are vulnerable to this type of manipulation because of what he called the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of instincts and archetypes that guide human behavior. The narcissist plugs into this collective energy, using it to make division feel natural, inevitable, even justified. For the victim, triangulation feels like betrayal multiplied. Not only are you dealing with the narcissist's hostility, but now people you trusted become instruments in their game. Friends stop returning calls. Family members begin to treat you with suspicion. Co-workers whisper behind your back. And worst of all, the narcissist presents themselves as the innocent mediator, the one caught in the middle, when in reality they are orchestrating the entire drama. This is what makes triangulation so devastating. You are punished not just by the narcissist, but also by the very people you once counted on for support. Jung would argue that the archetypal nature of the trickster explains why triangulation is so effective. The trickster thrives in chaos, creating division so that people lose their sense of orientation. By weaponizing others against you, the narcissist ensures that you are left isolated, doubting yourself, and desperate for reconciliation. The true genius of this tactic is that the narcissist never appears to be the aggressor. They appear to be the one keeping the peace. But once you understand triangulation as a conscious strategy, you can see through the illusion. You realize that the allies turned against you were never enemies by choice. They were manipulated into playing a role, and that recognition is the first step toward breaking free from the narcissist's carefully spun web. I want to hear from you. Which of these 8 tactics have you experienced the most? Share your story in the comments. Your voice could be the light someone else needs to find their way out. Thank you for watching.